The let them theory has recently gone viral as a self-help mantra, championed by author and speaker Mel Robbins. Its core message is simple. You can't control other people's actions, so let them do as they will. Every time you find yourself obsessing over someone's behavior, a rude driver, a disappointing friend, a stubborn partner, the advice is to step back and let them. This idea is not actually new. It echoes the Serenity Prayer's wisdom of accepting the things we cannot change and draws heavily from Stoic philosophy. Even Robbins acknowledges the let them theory has its roots in Buddhism, Stoicism, the Serenity Prayer, and radical acceptance. In essence, it's a modern repackaging of ancient insights. Peace comes not from controlling others, but from controlling our own reactions. Importantly, letting them does not mean tolerating abuse or abandoning your boundaries. Robbins and psychologists stress that this mindset isn't about passivity. You still speak up for yourself and make sure your needs are met. The companion phrase is, let me. Focus on what you will do. And if someone repeatedly violates your boundaries or behaves in truly harmful ways, you don't just let them continue. You remove yourself from the situation or intervene as necessary. The true aim of let them is to free yourself from wasting energy trying to micromanage others, so you can direct that energy toward your own life and well-being. As Dr. Cheeky Davis explains, other people's behavior is simply a reflection of their journey. When we no longer feel the need to correct or save others, we can more easily accept them for who they are. By accepting that others are who they choose to be, you reclaim the power to choose your own response. Below, we break down 10 key reflections for practicing the let them mindset in daily life. Each principle will help you cultivate the clarity and peace that come from releasing control over others and focusing on what you can control, yourself. 1. Let them be who they are. One of the most liberating aspects of this mindset is to allow people to reveal themselves as they are without interference. Instead of constantly trying to edit, fix, or persuade others to match our expectations, we step back and simply observe. This isn't indifference, it's clarity. When you let someone be who they are, you grant yourself access to the truth of that person's character, unfiltered by your attempts to change them. As the saying goes, often attributed to Maya Angelou, when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. By ceasing to mold others, you finally see their true colors and can make decisions based on reality, not on potential or fantasy. Stoic philosophy has long advised this kind of acceptance. Marcus Aurelius counseled himself each morning to anticipate difficult people and not be surprised by them. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. Rather than resenting others' imperfections, he chose to understand that people will behave according to their nature, and that his peace did not depend on them changing. In modern terms, Dr. Cheeky Davis echoes that accepting others as they are leads to greater peace in relationships. We can care about people without trying to control them. Letting others be doesn't mean you approve of everything they do. It simply means you stop exhausting yourself trying to reshape someone into the version you wish they were. You allow them to make their own choices, to succeed or to fail, and you observe those choices with a clearer mind. This clarity protects you from self-deception. How many times have we ignored red flags because we thought we could fix someone? By contrast, when you adopt let them be, you acknowledge red flags for what they are and adjust your involvement accordingly. As one therapist put it, the let them mindset shifts the focus from controlling or fixing others to accepting what's within your control, your reactions, your focus, your peace. In practice, that means if a friend consistently disrespects you, you let them be who they choose to be, and you calmly decide that this behavior isn't right for your life, walking away without trying to change them. If a colleague is always negative, you stop trying to cheerlead them into positivity. Let them remain negative if they wish, while you protect your own mood. Ultimately, letting them be is an act of respecting reality. People are who they are. Your role is not to rewrite their character, but to decide what role, if any, they will play in your life. As The Guardian noted, experts agree that giving up the mission of changing others is beneficial not only for you, but for them as well. It creates more authentic relationships. The bonus is that you conserve your emotional energy for the things that truly matter to you. 2. Detachment brings peace. There is a specific kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying burdens that were never yours to hold, namely, other people's problems, choices, and emotions. We often take on false responsibility for how others live, and in doing so, we trade our peace for stress. Detachment, in the healthy sense, means releasing this false responsibility. It means reminding yourself, I am only in control of myself, and I do not control others' paths. This conscious detachment is not coldness or apathy. It's the decision to stop tying your inner calm to external chaos. The Stoics were masters of this principle. Epictetus taught that serenity comes when we focus only on what is within our power and let go of everything else. Make the best use of what is in your power and take the rest as it happens, he advised. In other words, do your best with what you can control, your own actions and attitudes, and accept the rest as outside your control. Modern therapists likewise find this outlook empowering. Accepting that you can't control others shifts attention back to your own well-being. Detachment is caring more about your own peace than about controlling external outcomes. Practically, when you practice detachment, you create a buffer between someone else's behavior and your emotional reaction. For example, if a colleague is in a bad mood, detachment allows you to think, that's their issue today, I don't need to absorb it. If a relative makes a choice you disagree with, you might offer help if appropriate, but you don't attach your happiness to whether they take your advice. You let them walk their path while you remain centered on yours. As a California therapist noted, the let them mindset simplifies it. It shifts the focus from controlling or fixing others to accepting what's within your control, your reactions, your focus, your peace. In essence, you pull your energy back to where it can actually make a difference, inside yourself. Over time, this detachment brings a profound peace. You're no longer on a roller coaster dictated by everyone else's ups and downs. You stop reacting to every slight or change in mood around you. Instead, you respond from a place of clarity, if you respond at all. Research on anxiety shows that releasing the need to control external factors can significantly calm our nervous system. In fact, psychologists call excessive control a hidden form of anxiety. Control is rooted in the belief that I am not going to be okay unless everything goes a certain way. For all your efforts to be in control, it is not control you are gaining. It is only stress and anxiety. By letting go of that illusion, you exhale. Your shoulders drop. You realize that peace was available all along once you stopped gripping so tightly. As one expert succinctly put it, things that are not in your control are what someone else thinks, what someone else feels, how someone else acts. Things that are in your control are what you think, how you choose to react, what you communicate, etc. Detachment is simply living according to this truth. When you do, life's disturbances start to feel a little farther away from your core. They might still happen, but they no longer rattle you as easily, and that is the beginning of lasting serenity. 3. Control comes from anxiety. On the surface, being controlling might appear organized or responsible. You tell yourself you're just trying to help or prevent disaster. But often, an obsessive need to control others or every detail of a situation is actually fueled by fear. Psychologists note that control is frequently a coping mechanism for anxiety, a way to try to guarantee that nothing unexpected or bad happens. Deep down, the controlling person is thinking, if I can just make sure everyone behaves how I expect, then I'll feel secure. It's an understandable impulse, but it's also an illusion. Life will never be 100% predictable, and other people will never bend perfectly to our will. Thus, the more we grasp for control, the more anxious and frustrated we become when the world, inevitably, doesn't comply. The Stoics saw this clearly. They taught that much of what happens in life is beyond us. Weather, other people's choices, accidents, aging, and so on. Resisting this reality leads to constant worry. As Epictetus observed, externalizing your well-being, making it depend on others or fate, is a sure recipe for anxiety. The things we plan for are not always the things that go wrong. The problem with control is that it bases your well-being on factors outside of you, the one place where you have no control. In simpler terms, the more you pin your happiness on controlling outside events, the more powerless and stressed you actually feel. If you find yourself micromanaging loved ones or agonizing, what if they do this or that? Recognize that behind that impulse is fear, fear of uncertainty, fear of things not being okay. Robbins herself discovered this on a personal level. In her book, she recalls a moment on her son's prom night when she was being a complete control freak, frantically trying to manage every detail because she was anxious something would ruin the evening. Her daughter had to tell her, "It's their prom, not yours. Let them do it their way." Robbins realized her controlling frenzy was actually stress in disguise. Once she let go, the situation resolved fine on its own, and more importantly, her inner turmoil eased. The takeaway is that trying to control others is a losing battle that feeds anxiety rather than alleviating it. True peace comes from acceptance, not from an iron grip. This doesn't mean you give up on everything or become negligent. It means you refocus on controlling the one person you truly can, yourself. Your mindset shifts from, "How do I make them do X so I feel safe?" to, "Even if they do Y, how will I respond in a way that keeps me okay?" This shift is profoundly freeing. You start to trust that no matter what others choose, you will find a way to handle it. As one Psychology Today expert advised, shift your sense of well-being from factors outside your control to your internal strengths. Recognize that no matter what happens, you, your skills, your resilience, are the reason you'll be okay. When you have that self-trust, the compulsion to control everyone else loosens its grip. You can breathe easier knowing you'll survive the unpredictability of life. And paradoxically, when you stop over-managing people out of fear, your relationships improve, because nobody enjoys being controlled. You allow others the dignity of their own choices, and in return, you gain the stability of focusing on yours. Fourth, let people fail and learn. It's natural to want to protect those we care about from pain. Parents, especially, often intervene to prevent their children from failing or getting hurt. However, a growing body of wisdom suggests that stepping back and allowing others to experience the consequences of their actions is sometimes the kindest and most empowering thing we can do. In Stoicism and modern psychology alike, failure is seen as an invaluable teacher. As Seneca famously said, difficulties strengthen the mind as labor does the body. Challenges and failures can build resilience and insight in a way that hand-holding never will. When you let them fail, it's not out of cruelty or indifference, it's out of understanding that some lessons must be learned firsthand. Telling someone the stove is hot isn't as convincing as letting them feel a bit of heat. Likewise, warning a friend about a toxic relationship often won't stick until they see the truth themselves. We each have our journey, and sometimes falling down is how we learn to get back up stronger. In practical terms, this might mean resisting the urge to constantly rescue a loved one from the consequences of their procrastination, or not swooping in to solve every minor problem for your children. It can be hard to watch from the sidelines, but consider what a therapist in The Guardian observed after applying the "let them" mantra in her own parenting. Letting them figure things out on their own is hard sometimes, but it's so good for them and for me. Her kids grew more from making their own decisions and mistakes, and she benefited by not overextending herself. Overprotection, as it turns out, can rob people of growth opportunities. A Scientific American article on parenting noted that when we hover and shield our kids from every failure, we inadvertently cause more anxiety and hinder confidence. On the other hand, learning to fail well, in safe, manageable ways, builds the very failure muscles that lead to long-term success. The same principle applies beyond parenting. In any relationship, allowing others to face reality can be a gift. If a friend keeps making poor financial choices, bailing them out repeatedly might actually enable the cycle to continue. Stepping back, with compassion, might be what finally drives them to take responsibility. As one counselor put it, care without space becomes control. You can care about someone deeply, but if you don't give them space to stumble and learn, you're not really helping them grow. Of course, balance is key. Let them fail doesn't mean rejoicing in someone's hardship or refusing support when it's truly needed. It means discerning when to help and when to let natural consequences do the teaching. The let them theory advocates respecting others' life lessons. You support when asked or when appropriate, but you don't interfere uninvited. Interestingly, this approach can also improve relationships. It removes the unhealthy dynamic of one person always being the savior and the other being saved. Instead, each person owns their choices, and when they overcome a challenge, the confidence and wisdom gained are theirs to keep. Trust that life is often a better teacher than you could be. By letting people face the full weight of their decisions, you are, in effect, showing faith in their ability to grow. You're saying, "I believe you are capable of handling this and learning from it." That message can be far more powerful than any lecture or quick fix. In sum, let them fall if need be, and be there with support and encouragement when they pick themselves back up. As the Guardian piece highlighted, even professionals have to remind themselves of this. One therapist noted using "let them" to step back and let her children make mistakes, hard as it was, because she saw that it ultimately benefited them. We can extend the same grace to friends, partners, and colleagues. Sometimes the most loving thing to do is to allow others to learn from their own experience. They may fail, but they may also surprise you with how they rise to the occasion when given the chance. 5. Release unrealistic expectations. Nothing breeds resentment quite like unspoken or unrealistic expectations of others. We often carry a mental blueprint of how people should behave, often assuming they value what we value or will reciprocate as we would. When reality doesn't align with that script, we feel hurt or angry. I would have done X for them. Why didn't they do the same for me? The let them mindset invites us to let go of these rigid expectations and see people as they are, not as we wish them to be. As Marcus Aurelius's morning meditation teaches, it's wise to start the day recognizing that people will have flaws and make missteps because they're human. He didn't do this to become cynical, but to fortify his own patience and realism. By preemptively releasing the expectation that everyone will be kind, honest, or loyal, he could respond with more equanimity when they were not. Releasing expectations means we stop taking others' behavior personally when it isn't actually about us. For example, if you text a friend and they don't reply for 2 days, an expectation might whisper, "They should have responded sooner if they cared." This story only creates distress for you. Perhaps your friend was overwhelmed or simply different in communication style. The let them approach would say, let them respond or not in their own time. If that timing consistently doesn't work for you, you can communicate your needs or adjust the closeness of the friendship. But you don't assume malicious intent or try to force them to change. You accept that they are showing you their communication pattern and you decide how to react on your side. Stoicism frames this as managing our own judgments. Marcus Aurelius wrote that if you expect dishonest or rude people, you won't be caught off guard when they act that way. Modern psychology similarly advises distinguishing between preferences and expectations. It's okay to prefer that your partner remembers your birthday, for instance, and to express that. But an unspoken expectation that they must do X or it means they don't love me sets you up for unnecessary pain. If they fall short, you can let them, and then decide what it means for you, rather than immediately labeling it a betrayal. Often, our disappointment comes less from what the other person did, and more from the gap between our assumption and reality. By adjusting our assumptions, we suffer less. A key part of releasing expectations is recognizing that other people are not you. They have different histories, values, and thought processes. We might think our expectations are reasonable or how anyone decent would act, but that may not be true in their worldview. Rather than measuring people against an invisible yardstick, observe their behavior as information. As the Mindful Living site, The Mindful Word, noted, Stoics are taught not to spend time concerning themselves with the behavior of others. Our own behavior is all that's within our control. In practical terms, this means if someone consistently disappoints you, instead of trying for the 100th time to make them meet your expectations, you accept that this is who they are. Then you choose, can I live with this? Or do I need to create distance, end the relationship? This choice can be made calmly when you're not clouded by unrealistic hopes. Letting go of expectations is not lowering your standards for how you allow others to treat you. It's clarifying those standards in actions rather than wishful thinking. You still have boundaries and deal breakers, but you enforce them through your own actions, like communicating or walking away, rather than trying to mentally will someone into compliance. In a way, it ties back to detachment. Detach from the outcome that someone must behave a certain way for you to be okay. Instead, observe and respond. This shift can save you endless heartache. You stop writing stories in your head about how things should go and start living in the reality of how things are. And with that realism comes power, the power to make clear-eyed decisions and to appreciate people's good qualities without getting hung up on the ways they don't meet an ideal. As a bonus, when you're not silently holding someone to a script they didn't know about, your interactions become more authentic and less burdened by disappointment. In short, expect less, observe more, and you'll find a new level of peace in your relationships. 6. Not everything needs a reaction. In the heat of the moment, it's easy to believe we must respond to every provocation or problem immediately. Social media and modern communication encourage instant reactions, often driven by emotion rather than thought. But one of the most empowering applications of let them is realizing that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. In fact, silence or restraint can be a far more effective response in many cases. Not everything and everyone is worth your energy. Think of your attention and emotional energy as a finite resource. Every time you get entangled in a pointless debate or react to a minor slight, you spend some of that precious resource. Stoic thinkers like Epictetus advised creating a mental pause between an event and your response. He famously said, "Every event has two handles, one by which it can be carried and one by which it can't. If your brother does you wrong, don't grab it by the handle of his wrongdoing. Use the other handle, that he is your brother." This metaphor reminds us that we choose how to pick up a situation. We can grab the handle of offense and react impulsively, or grab the handle of understanding, forgiveness, and maintain our peace. In practice, this might mean when someone insults you, you let them say what they will, and you don't take the bait. You might choose to simply not respond, or to respond calmly later when you're composed. By doing so, you retain control over yourself, which is far more valuable than the fleeting satisfaction of a snappy comeback. A modern adage encapsulates this well: never wrestle with pigs. You both get dirty and the pig likes it. In other words, some people thrive on conflict and drama. If you engage with them at their level, you only hurt yourself and reward their antagonism. Far better to let them revel in the mud alone while you walk away with your dignity. Choosing not to react is not about suppressing your feelings or letting people win. It's about discernment, knowing which battles actually matter, we'll cover that next, and letting go of the rest. By not reacting to trivial provocations, you conserve energy for the issues that truly deserve your attention. Of course, mastering this is easier said than done. Our egos often flare up and urge us to defend ourselves or prove a point. It can feel uncomfortable to stay quiet or take the high road when someone is wrong or unfair. However, Consider the long-term outcome. How many times have you regretted sending an angry reply or escalating a petty argument? Probably more often than you've regretted not reacting. In many cases, when you refrain from an unneeded reaction, the issue resolves itself or proves to be inconsequential. By contrast, reacting can sometimes magnify a small problem into a larger conflict. The Guardian columnist who tried the "let them" mantra noted that saying "let them" to herself gave her a crucial moment to pause and prevented knee-jerk reactions. It became a mental checkpoint reminding her that her own actions were all she truly controlled, and that pause was annoying, but also liberating. To implement this, practice the art of the pause. The next time you get an irritating message or feel provoked, take a deep breath. Remind yourself, not everything deserves my reaction. Let me choose if this is worth my peace. You might be surprised how often the answer is no, it's not worth it. This doesn't mean you never respond to anything. It means you respond on your own terms. You decide the when, what, and if of your response. That is real power. The Irish Times, in advice about handling disrespect, put it succinctly. If someone is not willing to engage respectfully, there's no point in getting into it. Some people are not at a point where they can be introspective. In that case, it's definitely not worth getting into it. It's better to walk away. Let them say what they will. You save your breath and sanity. In summary, reserve your reactions for what truly matters. By doing so, you'll find you have far fewer fires to put out in daily life. Many potential dramas will simply wither away from lack of your attention. Meanwhile, you'll feel a growing confidence that you're in control of yourself, which is far more satisfying than the fleeting victory of winning a pointless argument. 7. Choose your battles wisely. Let them does not mean you become a doormat or that you avoid all conflict. It means you develop the wisdom to discern which conflicts are worth engaging in. Some battles in life truly matter: standing up for your core values, protecting your loved ones, enforcing an important boundary. Other battles are mere ego traps or distractions that drain your energy for no good reason. The trick is to know the difference. The Stoics would advise, preserve your efforts for virtuous fights, not vain ones. A crucial part of this mindset is setting boundaries. You let people be who they are, but you also decide what behavior you will accept in your space. For example, you might let a coworker have their pessimistic attitude, but you will not let them bully you or take credit for your work. In the latter case, you must speak or act. That's a battle of respect and integrity. The difference from before is that you're not fighting to change their personality, you're simply drawing a line for yourself. The Stoic-influenced guidance on this is clear. The Stoic accepts the behavior of others, within reason. If someone is abusive, even a Stoic would remove themselves from the situation. The Stoic would change their own circumstances, realizing that's all they can control. In other words, tolerance has limits. You let most minor things slide, but when something crosses a line, abuse, violation of rights or personal boundaries, letting them in that case means letting them experience the consequence of losing access to you. You don't try to fix them, but you don't stick around for mistreatment either. Choosing your battles wisely often means walking away from the fights that only serve to drag you down. The earlier quote, "Never wrestle with pigs," comes to play here again. If someone is committed to misunderstanding you or is arguing in bad faith, there is zero reward in continuing that fight. Your time and emotional health are better spent elsewhere. Instead, save your fire for the battles that reflect your values or genuine needs. For instance, it may very well be worth having a difficult confrontation with a family member who continually oversteps your privacy. That's a pattern that, if unaddressed, will harm your well-being. In such cases, let them doesn't apply. You must assert yourself, e.g., "I need you to stop doing X, or I will have to distance myself." However, if that same family member simply has an annoying habit that isn't truly harmful, you might decide to let that annoyance go and not turn it into a major issue. A useful question to ask is, if I engage in this conflict, What do I hope to achieve? And is that outcome in my control? If the answer is that you're seeking to change the other person's fundamental attitude or to win for pride's sake, that's probably not a wise battle. It's driven by ego or false control. But if the aim is to uphold your boundary or clarify a misunderstanding for the sake of mutual respect, then engaging might be worthwhile. The intention behind your engagement matters. Stoics would counsel confronting someone only to protect what is right or just, not to soothe your ego. In practice, Robbins herself notes certain situations where you should absolutely not let them. For example, if someone is doing something dangerous or violating someone's rights, you should intervene. Also, advocating for yourself, like negotiating fair pay or insisting on proper treatment, is still your responsibility. The key is that you do these from a place of self-respect and necessity, not from a frantic need to control or be right. By choosing your battles, you conserve your emotional strength. Life will present true challenges that demand your courage. You don't want to be depleted because you fought every trivial or unwinnable fight along the way. A helpful mantra is, "Not my circus, not my monkeys," as the Guardian writer quipped. Focus on battles that are your circus, the ones that pertain to your immediate responsibilities or values. Let the rest unfold as it will. You'll find that by walking away from unproductive conflicts, you maintain far more influence over the things that do matter. After all, you can't fight everything. If you try, you'll burn out. But if you fight only the fights that matter, you stand a much better chance of meaningful victories. 8. Shift the focus back to you. One of the most profound shifts in the let them approach is how it redirects your focus. When you stop fixating on controlling others, you suddenly reclaim mental space and time to devote to your own growth. Ask yourself, how much of your life have you spent monitoring or worrying about what others are doing, thinking, or saying? Many of us spend hours each day in an internal dialogue about other people's choices, essentially living in other people's heads. This is not only exhausting, it's unproductive. You have little to show for all that rumination, except stress. Letting them frees you from this trap. Instead of checking whether they texted back or rehashing how they behaved, you turn that energy inward. You check in with yourself. What are your feelings today? What goals are you neglecting? Where can you improve or find joy? This isn't selfish in a harmful way. It's healthy self-focus. Stoic philosophy firmly emphasizes focusing on one's own virtue and actions over others. Epictetus said people are disturbed not by events, but by their view of events, often colored by imagined worries. When you constantly imagine what others might be thinking or might do, you create anxieties about problems that aren't even real or within your control. Shifting focus back to yourself eliminates a lot of those imagined anxieties. Consider the modern psychological advice in The Guardian. A therapist noted that the let them mindset shifts the focus from controlling or fixing others to accepting what's within your control, your reactions, your focus, your peace. When you do that, something beautiful happens. You start actually making progress on your own life. All the energy that was leaking out in overthinking others comes back to you as fuel. Maybe you channel it into finally starting that exercise routine, or spending more time on a hobby, or simply relaxing without worry for a change. You also become more present. It's hard to be present in your life if your mind is constantly tangled in theirs. By letting them do them, you get to fully do you. It can be startling to realize how much we abandon ourselves in favor of preoccupations with others. For example, you might skip your morning journaling, which you know helps you, because you're busy drafting a long message to make someone understand your point of view, or you lose sleep replaying an argument, effectively giving that person the power to disrupt your next day. Let them practice encourages you to catch yourself in those moments and redirect. Instead of rehearsing what you'll say to change someone's mind, a mind you don't control, you could use that time to meditate, plan your day, or do literally anything nourishing for yourself. As the Psychology Today article noted, You must shift your focus away from all that is not in your control to all that is. What someone else thinks or feels is not in your control. What you think or do is. Often, making this shift reveals neglected areas of self-care and personal development that were overshadowed by obsessing over others. To put it practically, next time you catch yourself stalking someone's social media or overanalyzing a colleague's email tone, pause and ask, what could I be doing for myself right now? It could be as simple as getting up to stretch, or as significant as tackling a personal goal. When you consistently reorient to yourself, you gradually build a life that is full and satisfying, independent of others' decisions. An added bonus, you become less needy for external validation because you're giving attention to your own validation. As the literature on emotional validation suggests, constantly seeking reassurance or trying to manage others' perceptions can push you away from your true self. In contrast, nurturing your own values and goals brings you closer to who you want to be, making you less concerned about outside approval. In summary, let them isn't just about letting others go, it's about letting yourself come forward. When you stop living in response to others, you start living in alignment with yourself. You remember that your life is yours and that your energy belongs to your own growth, joy, and purpose. The irony is that by focusing on yourself in this healthy way, you often become a happier, more centered person, which only improves the relationships that truly matter and filters out those that don't. 9. Let people feel their emotions. Our instinct when someone we care about is upset is often to immediately comfort or fix. While well-intentioned, this can sometimes invalidate what the person is feeling. One of the deeper applications of let them is to let people have their emotional experience without interference. If a friend is sad, instead of saying, "Don't cry, cheer up," you let them cry. If your partner is angry about something, you resist the urge to say, "Calm down," right away. You let them be angry for a moment and express it. If someone withdraws in silence, you allow that space instead of peppering them with "What's wrong?" before they're ready. This doesn't mean you ignore their feelings. It means you honor them by not rushing to clean them up. Emotional validation is a powerful relationship skill. Psychology experts note that everyone wants to feel heard, seen, and that their feelings are understood and accepted. When we jump in with solutions or try to minimize the emotion, "It's not that bad, you're overreacting," we send the message that their feelings are wrong or too much. Over time, this can cause people to suppress emotions or feel shame for having them. By contrast, letting them feel, simply being present and acknowledging their emotion, tells them it's okay to be human and have feelings. You might be surprised how much more quickly a person calms down or opens up when they don't feel judged or hurried to get over it. Often just saying, "I hear you." That sounds really hard, and sitting in quiet support is far more healing than a flurry of advice. The Stoics valued rationality, but they also understood the importance of acknowledging reality, and emotions are part of reality. Stoicism teaches not to be ruled by emotions, but also not to deny them. Marcus Aurelius often wrote observations about his own anger or frustration in meditations, not to wallow in it, but to objectively see it and let it pass. In a similar spirit, letting someone feel their emotions is like providing a safe container for those emotions to run their course. You're not feeding the fire, but you're not smothering it either. You're just there, steadfast, until it naturally cools. This approach also checks our ego. Sometimes we intervene in others' feelings because we are uncomfortable witnessing them. It can be distressing to see someone cry or be enraged. We want to stop that discomfort, in ourselves as much as in them. But a mature love or friendship tolerates that discomfort for the other's sake. As an example, a therapist might let a client sit in sadness for a moment without jumping in, because they know that fully feeling it is part of healing. Similarly, you can be that compassionate presence for those around you. If your friend is grieving a loss and repeats the same hurt sentiments, you let them express it as many times as they need. Each time, they're processing a bit more. You nod, you maybe hold their hand, you say, "It's okay to feel this, I'm here." That is incredibly validating and creates trust. They learn that with you, they don't have to wear a mask of "I'm fine." Moreover, allowing others their emotions sets a precedent that feelings are not problems to be solved. They are experiences to be attended to. Once felt and validated, emotions often transform or resolve into insight. If you constantly short-circuit someone's emotional process with quick fixes, they may never get to the root of what they feel. By letting them be, you give them the gift of self-discovery. They might find their own solutions once the wave of emotion passes. And if they don't need a solution, because some things like grief aren't solvable, they at least feel supported in their pain. This principle goes both ways. Just as you let others feel, you learn to let yourself feel without immediate judgment. You realize it's okay to have a bad day or to be upset, and you don't need to immediately stifle it to make others comfortable. Emotional honesty flourishes in an environment of acceptance. In any close relationship, romantic, familial, friendship, adopting "let them feel" can deepen the connection. It says, all of you is welcome here, not just the happy or agreeable parts. And that is one of the greatest gifts we can give each other. As a Psychology Today article notes, validating a loved one and acknowledging that you hear them does not mean you have to agree. Hearing a person and agreeing with them are two different things. You can validate that someone is truly upset or hurt without necessarily endorsing their perspective. Often that validation alone, "I see you're really upset," is what they need most. In sum, let them be sad, mad, or quiet, and just be there. It might feel like you're doing nothing, but in truth you're offering exactly what many people need: permission to be human. 10. Let them is a daily practice. Adopting the "let them" mindset is not a one-time switch, it's a continuous practice. In a world full of temptations to control and react, you will find yourself challenged regularly, perhaps even daily, to recommit to this peaceful approach. One day you might effortlessly let a rude comment slide, and the next day you catch yourself arguing with a stranger online. That's normal. The goal is not perfection, but persistence. Each morning, like the Stoics used to do, you can remind yourself of your principles. Some things are not in my control today. I'll meet them with acceptance. I will focus on my own actions and let others do as they will. Marcus Aurelius journaled extensively to reinforce these ideas for himself, showing that even an emperor needed constant reminders to live by wisdom. Think of "let them" like a muscle that strengthens with repetition. The more you practice it in small ways, the more second nature it becomes in bigger moments. For example, you might start by letting the person who cuts you off in traffic go without chasing them down with your anger. You take a deep breath and continue driving, maybe even saying "let them" out loud to yourself. Later, when faced with a more emotionally charged situation, say a family dispute, you'll find that muscle memory kicking in. You remember to pause, to not react immediately, to consider what's yours to carry and what's theirs. Over time, you may notice that scenarios which used to trigger you intensely now have less grip on your mood. You've built an inner resilience. You've become, as some describe, untouchable, in the sense that external noise doesn't easily shake your internal calm. Not cold, not indifferent, just clear and steady. A helpful aspect of daily practice is reflection. In the evening, you might briefly review: where did I succeed in letting go today? Where did I slip into old controlling habits or overreactions? Without beating yourself up, use these reflections as learning. Each day gives fresh opportunities. Perhaps yesterday you couldn't resist correcting someone's misconception about you. Next time, you'll catch the impulse and try a different response. Maybe silence, maybe a simple "agree to disagree." Applaud yourself for the times you did manage to stay in your lane and protect your peace. You'll likely realize those were the moments you felt most proud and at ease. It's also worth noting that "let them" is not about changing others, but you might notice a side effect. People around you may start respecting you more. When you carry yourself with this quiet confidence, not needing to control, not rising to every provocation, it can shift dynamics. Some difficult people may leave your orbit because you're no longer feeding their dramas, And those who value your energy will adjust to meet you with more respect, because they see you won't engage in toxicity. In any case, the relationships that remain tend to be healthier. You've essentially retrained people in how to treat you without ever having to lecture them. You simply changed your own behavior. As the Guardian piece noted, when you are not wasting time trying to control other people, you have more time to think about other things, and your demeanor changes. One therapist even said she wished she'd learned "let them" sooner, as it reminded her, it's okay to step back, let people be who they are, and stop carrying things that aren't ours to carry. That's a wonderful summary of the journey. Each day, practice stepping back, practice traveling lighter by dropping what isn't yours. In conclusion, "let them" is more than a catchy mantra. It's a way of life that leads to freedom. By choosing peace over power struggles, clarity over control, and self-growth over ego battles, you transform quietly from within. The world around you doesn't immediately change. People will still do what they do. But you will change. You'll find yourself calmer, more focused, and more compassionate to both others and yourself. In the words of Mel Robbins, accepting that we can't control other people's actions is a reminder that we are entirely responsible for our own. When you live that truth daily, you become, in a sense, untouchable. Not because nothing ever affects you, but because you trust yourself to handle whatever does. Every day, life will hand you little tests, an insult here, a frustration there, a person you love doing the opposite of what you'd hoped. See these not as obstacles to your peace, but as chances to strengthen it. Take a breath and remember, let them. Let them think what they want. Let them choose their path. Let them deal with the results. Meanwhile, you focus on your path. As you do this consistently, you'll notice a quiet transformation. You no longer live in reaction to others. You live in alignment with your own values and serenity. And ironically, this is when you often have the greatest positive influence, not by force, but by example. After all, the most peaceful people aren't those who control the world around them, but those who have learned to control themselves. Let them, and watch how beautifully life changes when you do.